Hello, everyone. This is Rick with the Cyber Pro podcast. Industry leaders share their insights. It's about 5 questions in 9 minutes because hackers never sleep. We have a repeat guest. We're super excited for bringing some of these folks back. In this case, Chuck White, you were our 30th podcast in March of 2021. So we're pushing 2.5 years now. And at first, you talked to us about cyber resiliency for understanding risk. And the podcast did well. We loved having you on. That's why we drug you back to this round. And so, Chuck, what have you been up to since the last time you were on the Cyber Pro podcast?
Wow. Since 2021, in fornetix years, that's like 22 years is like 20 years in fornetix years. So since 2021, wow, I would say few things. One, we've taken the technology, our product, and we've been able to build a solution play around our technology. So that's actually sort of when you're talking about resiliency, it's okay, I've got great technology, but I need more of the equation to actually deliver that resiliency to you. So we really post-COVID came out with that mentality, took it in stride, and we had a lot of everything from, since the last time we spoke, we've actually built out like a large industrial scale PKI for like device identity being used by one of the largest semiconductor manufacturers in the United States. Continuing to put a story out there around how you build resiliency of solutions. And then the one that might have, been over some of social media and particularly in defense circles was that little Talisman Saber experiment where we may have just been the first tactical implementation of zero trust. So that is been busy taking that. And I think that's the other thing is the other big pivot. When we talked about resilience, we talked a lot about how cryptography, we have this cool policy engine thing. It took a while to get all the people in the organization, not the engineering side, but the rest of the company. I wouldn't understand. So wait, that policy engine is kind of important, isn't it? Yeah, it's a policy decision point. So we've been able, recently, we've actually been putting capability out there so that, using us for straight up making policy decisions on transactions that have nothing to do with cryptography. Example, being able to trust chat messages on an individual basis depending on sender and recipient. Or things like making SharePoint more safe or API gateway type behavior. So that's been a big piece of the type of work we've been doing since. And it's actually, definitely it's been getting people's attention. And in fact, to really caveat that, we were in a meeting with leaders from, Pac Fleet, Pacific Fleet. And one of the leaders was like, when he found out we did key management, he's like, they do that? And so I literally just have this huge group, all these senior officers in the room across, Army, Air Force, U.S. Cyber Command. And here I am. I just I guffaw and nearly fall out of my chair because it's like, boy, it took us long enough. So yeah, it's been a pretty eventful since 2021. Still doing the resiliency thing though, just better equipped. We are better positioned to make it happen.
And that's awesome. Chuck, quick question for you. How has the cybersecurity landscape evolved over the past few years?
I make a joke. This is like pre-COVID. I think we might have said this previously, and blockchain, everything was about blockchain, then and then when blockchain was determined, it's a growing technology, has tons of, vital usage and things like non-repudiation. But it was said it's not quite ready for everything yet. And so then everyone went to zero trust. And in that process, that was something that, things started really kind of going that direction of, wait, does anyone actually do this? And then the solution play became important because the zero trust has driven a number of things. But I would say the biggest driver is that it's forcing people to realize that cybersecurity is a team sport. Cyber resiliency is a team sport. No one has a complete solution. Zero trust is not a product. It's an architecture. It's an approach. And so you can have technology that contributes. You can have something that falls into one of the 7 pillars of the 152 controls, but you're not the entire thing yourself. And I think, but the fact that that's a reality and people are coming to terms with that, it's, it's also, I think, in a more, but that's getting kind of in the weeds for all of us who play in the space. I would say arguably the biggest thing is that people come to, it's really sunk in, I think, almost at a consumer level, that it's not, data security is really what everyone cares about. I think that's, and whether, you're in operational technology, information technology, or you're dealing with your phone, these are all means to an end, and they have their own, cybersecurity controls, et cetera. But ultimately what it all comes down to is everyone gets this, I'm wanting to protect my data, and in zero trust being very much a data-centric security model, sort of the two become, and that's something that really, maybe with the timing of, it started in like 2020, there was mentions of it. By 2021, it was really kicking off. But 2022, you start seeing policy come out around it. And it wasn't just, high in the sky things. You've got, folks, at the Pentagon, Randy Resnick, for instance. He's actually, this is what you are going to do. We have a strategy. We are going to make people do stuff. So that's a change. Now, I think the real delta now, though, maybe I'm jumping ahead in the questions, which I have not received yet, is that great. One thing that years ago I told people need to know follows process. So in a zero trust environment, in that same line is, what are the use cases? I think that's going to be the big thing that people are going to be asking, particularly from an implementer, from the cybersecurity professional. Great, you've got all these doodads and widgets that do things. But what things are you? Why are you doing them? What are you trying to do? How are you defining your protect surface? What does that actually mean? Why is that protect surface important or something else over there? So why are you? And that's going to be another big change, because now that the data is fluid, people actually have to think about how the data is used. So I think that's another big thing that's coming.
Nice. Yeah. You definitely pivoted into the next question I was going to ask around emerging trends, technologies, or approaches. I'm still going to ask it, but outside of zero trust, are there any emerging trends or approaches or even technologies that you're excited about?
Oh, this is where I put in my point about artificial intelligence. I guess everybody's talking about right now. I could pick some other random thing, but if it comes down to it, the ability to feed data, the ability to gain insights, find needles, and over a number of techniques and capabilities. Artificial intelligence is one of those big emerging things that I think are becoming very important. AI is one everyone is going to pick on, because I would be like having my head in the sand if I didn't mention that. I think another, I'm thinking about other emerging technologies that are really starting to rear themselves. It isn't going to sound strange. I can say quantum, because I do work in that space too. Number of quantum enabled technologies, working with vendors like Quantinium and Crypt, they're actually taking these things and making them actionable. And I think the next emerging in cybersecurity, you've seen it for, this idea of truly distributed compute environment. So I want to say hybrid cloud, but that's another area in terms of enablement for what people, it's great, you use cybersecurity, but what are you doing cybersecurity on? And I think that's becoming another really interesting idea about what we're seeing here. I'm picking on that because I've actually working, once upon a time, you just had Kubernetes, right? You had Docker, right? Got containers, you have microservices architecture, and you're going to do it all on Kubernetes, Podman, whatever. And now you're seeing multiple vendors that are all doing Kubernetes. And that's something that the last time we spoke, I think that's a couple that becomes important, because this ties to some of these other subjects, particularly when you think about how am I going to apply a cyber capability based off of AI, enabling zero trust in an edge environment with a blockchain. I'm just kidding. I mean, it's the idea. It's like this is that general. Given all of these things are dealing with the fluidity of data, and that's why I think that's interesting to see various technologies coming to bear. And I guess I'm picking on blockchain, but I am seeing it particularly on like the IoT or like the semiconductor level supply chain activities. Seeing some really interesting use cases for blockchain there, but fluid infrastructure to support whether, protection of data is really where all these things are coming around. And of course, that AI becoming a way to be able to figure out, that's a lot of information moving back and forth. So finding needles in haystacks, or, too much data for a human to process. So how do you help the human process the data? So those are the things that from an emerging trend, well, at least what I'm seeing.
Nice. So I know you have a lot of cool stories, Chuck. I'd love to hear a real world cybersecurity story and what lessons or takeaways that we can learn from it.
Okay. So there I was. This is just about a month and a half ago. And you'll excuse me if some of the story is going to be a little like, just trust me. I was in Australia for the Talisman Sabre exercise. And we had parts of US, Australia, Army, the Marine Corps, all coming together. And the architecture we thought we were going to be deploying got flipped on its head. And within a week, it went from being in a corner to being the actual operational environment itself. Great for us, but scary getting there. And the lessons learned, what came out of that was one, systems engineering. We talk about cybersecurity, but there's an idea of systems engineering, systems lifecycle, becomes a critical aspect of learning, how do you address these solutions, that zero trust architecture, when you're not always going to be able to say, this is exactly what we're doing, life happens, mission happens. So that was being in the process of doing that. Yes, having a cybersecurity background, but also saying, great, I've got to work through some basic stuff, like how do I determine discovery? What is the system? These are, arguably you could say it's the OODA loop, but on a systems architecture perspective. Being able to fall back though to understand systems lifecycle, really important in light of cybersecurity. You can have not a single technology, it could be any number of technologies you're working with, but understanding how things have to come about, just that, when you're putting your Lego blocks together, what it actually needs to look like at the end of the day. There are basic fundamentals, goes in goods and goes out goods, that you have to actually be able to understand, document, and work through. It also ties into some things like security by design, by, almost, I wouldn't say that was yes, the components all were enabling security by design, but the same idea that having understanding systems lifecycle and applying it. So that was a big part of, Talisman Sabre, was actually going through the integration exercise of putting these pieces together to a specific purpose, and realizing, as much as we'd love to draw little boxes around our problems, having the discipline to deal with things when the box changes, but still be operational was the big surprise. And that was something that literally the lesson learned is you can have all, understanding, the appropriate, your 7 pillars of zero trust. You are a rock star in terms of defining your 853, so your RMF, deity. Yet, if you don't understand systems lifecycle and how systems generally have to operate, work, then you might be doing your cyber. And when the vacuum goes away, or something fills that vacuum, oh, it's a big surprise. So keep it prepared.
Nice. Chuck, this is the fun question for you. We used to ask, what's your favorite piece of retro technology? But now, what's your favorite piece of current technology that makes you smile?
I could give you any number of cool widgets, things that make me smile. Probably the coolest thing, and this is going to sound weird, my daughter is getting like Invisalign, and there's a tool that she can use to scan the progress of how her teeth are correcting. I think that's super cool. It's weird. I know it's like, that's one. I'm gonna give you another one bonus round. The use of tools like Grammarly. I think Grammarly is pretty funny. You could just say, here's some, write me a thing. Yeah. And but if you think about it, you think about how that's being employed. I think that's pretty cool. And then, so those are cool technologies. I mean, and then of course, also on anything I built.
Love it. That's how it should be. Love it. I have to tell you, Chuck, I use Grammarly, but not for the grammar portion. I use it more as a spell checker. But I purposely try to avoid Grammarly because I feel it takes away from my poor grammar that people laugh at.
Agreed. I did it as an experiment on that one in particular. I put some bullets. I wrote about it myself first. I have a tendency to write very similar to the way that I talk, which probably means I have used way too many words. You think I was Charles Dickens or something, paid by the word. And then I tossed it in Grammarly just to see how the two would compare. And I'm like, I don't know. One doesn't have the effect. But it was interesting to see how much, that there might be it's the old example. You can have the correct answer, but not the right one. Right. That's, a way to look at it.
Well, Chuck, thank you so much for being on the Cyber Pro podcast again.
We'll see what round 3 looks like.
2 more years. No,
maybe 4 years.
Thank you for tuning into the Cyber Pro podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on new podcasts and all of our cool bonus content.